Welcome to the Big World Made Small podcast for the adventure traveler. I'm thrilled you're here. My name is Jason Elkins, and in addition to being your host, I'm also a former U.S. Army paratrooper, third-generation commercial hot air balloon pilot, paramotor pilot, ex-Montana fly fishing guide, advanced open water scuba diver, and a full-time nomad that's visited more than 30 countries on 6 continents. As a seasoned adventure travel expert with a passion for creating and sharing meaningful experiences, I'm on a quest to impact the lives of adventure travelers, the tour operators they rely on, and the communities that host them. Every week, I bring you exclusive interviews with fascinating adventure tourism experts who have agreed to share their personal stories, favorite destinations, and some invaluable travel insights they've picked up along the way. We'll enjoy a casual conversation, create some connections, and likely share some laughs. It's my hope that by the end of each episode, this big world will feel just a bit smaller. Let's get started, shall we? All right, welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Big World Made Small podcast for the adventure traveler. And today we've got a real adventurer. We've got Jim Young here. He's the founder and director of Adventurous Ewe. And since this is a podcast, Jim, I want to make sure that everybody understands that's Adventurous Ewe, like E-W-E, like I would say a female sheep, just to kind of help people kind of visualize the name of the company. So, Jim, welcome to the show. Happy to have you here.
Yeah, thank you very much, Jason. I'm excited to be here too. So,
yeah, it'll be a fun conversation. And since I preface this with it's Adventurous Ewe, E-W-E, I feel like we should just jump right into that before we do anything without going into too much detail and background, because we're going to get into that. But why Adventurous Ewe spelled that way?
Because we're based in Wales, I think. I don't know the connection to sheep. I think it has to be a quick way of saying it. Yeah.
All right. Okay. That makes sense. I think that helps connect the dots for us. And now we're going to go back into the past a little bit, because I think that your story is just as important as what you do now. So I want to figure out, how did you get from wherever you were to where you are now? And we can go back as far as you think necessary.
Well, I was working within our family business back here in North Wales. And I just wanted to go, had a bit of a lust for travel. So I hit the road like many people, and as everyone seemed to do in those days, we head to Australia and little trips to Indonesia and India and things. So I was away a while, probably about 18 months. And then I came back to the UK and I thought, oh my goodness, I'm not made for this. So I kind of, had a look at things to do, what I wanted to do, and just piecing things together. And somebody once said to me at this time was the best job you could do in the world is what you enjoy doing and what you can do. And having worked in sort of as a mechanic in the mines and the family business with trucks and things, looking through magazines, we didn't have internet in those days or anything, and came across the overland scene and really fancied that. Funny thing was, at the time, it was one of those magazines and it had the 10 best jobs in the world. Actually, the first one was something like a Canadian bush fireman or something like that.
Oh, jeez.
Didn't quite see myself that being me, really. And the overland was there. So I got stuck into that.
Tell me more about, a couple things. One is, roughly how old were you when you took this first big adventure?
I guess in this day and age, probably quite late in life. I was 23. I know people do it a lot younger now, but I was, 23.
Later in life. Isn't that interesting how our perspectives change?
Yeah.
And tell me, I'll be honest with you, I'm not super familiar with the term overland. You've used it a couple times, the overland scene or the overland life. So maybe that has a different significance in Wales. Tell me more about what is overland.
It was, it's just a form of travel. I think probably originates from sort of the 60s and 70s on the old hippie trail, when people didn't fly so much and traveling through countries and continents overland. So we were using trucks, and we would travel from one side of Africa to another, or South America and things like that. Really, that's how it started.
Okay, I figured that's kind of what that meant, but I wanted to touch on that for myself and anybody else that's listening that got threw off by the word overland. But that makes perfect sense. So I imagine you've had that sounds quite adventurous. So I'm sure you've got some adventures. You mentioned, traveling across Africa, South America, those types of places. So what was your first big overland adventure?
Well, when I first started with the company that I was with, I first got sent out to Africa, to Nairobi. Oddly enough, I never had my mind set on going to Africa at the time. It was sort of more focused towards Asia. But when I got there, it was took a little time to settle into it. But it was just it was an amazing way of life. I think for me, it was the development that I went through as a person, really. Sort of, I found myself just growing as a person and getting into, becoming, leading these trips and guiding these trips through Africa and stuff. It was really adventurous. I don't know. There were so many adventures really along the way. So many.
That's very cool. So you were leading trips. What kind of trips? What was the typical trip that you were starting out with?
Yeah, typically we'd be sort of in Nairobi. People would fly in there, and the more popular one we would do would be 9 weeks down to Cape Town. So the group would fly in. We would just have a pot of money that sent from the office that we had to budget in. We'd have all the people there. There was obviously no internet, no sat phones, nothing really. And the principle was get from Nairobi to Cape Town and arrive on such a date. And just you had to tick certain things off along the way. So you'd go to like the Serengeti or various Victoria Falls, places like that you would get on. But how we got there, on which roads we took were generally up to us, really. And we also you had to look after the group, do the maintenance on the truck, plan it. Oh, you did everything, really. It was, really fantastic.
That's very cool. And what size was the typical group? How, was this just a few people or a larger group?
They were about, I guess, on average about between 8 and 16, maximum 16. But so it obviously it varied, but and the tours varied. But the 9-week one was the longest. There were longer ones. Some people would do. I think the longest I did was 13 weeks in Africa.
Wow. Yeah. And this is, as you mentioned, this is all before cell phones, before GPS. You were actually a map and just like, okay, we're going to hit these few spots along the way, do some other stuff in between, and hopefully end up at the destination with the same number of people you started with.
Absolutely. Yeah, we picked people up along the way and things like that.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so people would have departure dates along the way. Sorry, not just random people on the side of the road. It was great. But for me, I think when I got there, I guess I wasn't the most confident or the strongest person. And with me doing this is what happened. I mean, when I was out there for the first 3 months training, I ended up doing. Somebody said, right, Jim's going to take charge of Malawi, for instance. So he's going to do the briefings tonight. And I'd been with the group for a month at that point. And when it came round to me to talk to them, I was quite nervous and I knew them all. And I got through it, and we got to Cape Town and then I led my first trip. So like I say, for me, it was a huge development. It's a journey all the time. And you would see people come on the trips as well, and they were nervous at the beginning, and the team would grow, they would grow. And you kind of thought, these people are going to remember this forever. No money in the world can buy this. It's just, and you were part of it. And that was really, really special. And even to this day, that resonates. It's just travel is just an amazing thing, and it can, you can grow and see such great things. It's became my life from that point onwards, really, to where I am today. Yeah.
What I hear you saying, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but it sounds like you kind of came out of your shell a little bit. Would you say that you were kind of more introverted before you got started with this? Because clearly in this conversation now, you're definitely not an introvert. You seem very comfortable. So
I wasn't the person I am today, or the confidence that I had. And maybe I always had that ability, but maybe I didn't. And I might jump ahead here, but that's been my journey all the way through. I would say it's been my journey with starting Adventurous Ewe. It was that same feeling that I had that time arriving in Nairobi, trying to move all those years for working as a tour guide to starting my business. It was like, I guess, arriving back in Nairobi. That whole, can I do this? and then learning and learning and learning and growing and growing. Yeah, it's just been that all the way through. So
that's very cool. So from Africa, from how long were you doing those overland trips in Africa?
Well, I was in Africa for about 5 years, but overall doing the overland like about 9 years. So I was in South America for a couple of years, and then back and forth between the Middle East and a lot in Asia as well.
Where were the most challenging overland trips out of those areas that you just mentioned, or maybe something you haven't even mentioned yet? What were, are there any areas that stand out that were like, wow, that's a really tough place to do it?
Yeah, one really does stick out to me quite a lot, and that was when we went from Kathmandu to Beijing over what was then what is known as the Friendship Highway, but it wasn't. It wasn't a highway. I'll not put it that way. It was a gravel road. Those ones where you see with those huge drops on the side with landslides, and we had no notes. We kind of made it up as we went along. We got stuck a lot. The suspension broke on the truck at 4,000 meters. We got bogged, and I in the middle of on a plateau. And I ended up leaving the group there and hitchhiking overnight to try and get some help. And that one definitely sticks out. Yeah, it was great.
Do you think that the guests that go on a trip that's challenging like that and has a lot of kind of surprises along the way, do you feel like they leave that feeling more like they've had more of an adventure than the ones that just kind of go smooth and easy?
Yeah, I think so. I think that's with all tours, isn't it? I think sometimes when the plan changes a little bit, it does make for more of an adventure, and it can make it. But I think sometimes we would have the groups, certainly on the overland, if you had a strong, confident group, as I said, you could go anywhere you wanted to really to get to certain destinations. If you had a team that was strong, you could try new roads and different ways because you knew if you came across a problem that everybody would work together.
I've been fortunate to have traveled quite a bit myself, both from the perspective of leading trips or scouting trips, and then also just going with other tour operators on some of their tours to the fam trip type of thing.
Yeah.
And one of the trips that I remember the most was pretty much exactly like that. It was in Namibia, where we were in a new place that they had never. So I don't know, maybe they'd been there every week for 6 years, but we felt like it was the first time they'd ever been there. And then the idea was to drive up over the mountains through the Namib Desert down to the coast and up along the coast. And on a couple of these days that we were going up over the mountains, we'd get stuck, and these guys would get stuck in these big sand dunes. And I'm just like, I'm pretty adventurous, but I was like, I don't see a way out of here. I think we're just going to die here.
Yeah.
And these guys, maybe it took them a couple hours, but they managed to get the vehicles out of the sand, and we continued our journey. And then along the way, they would find, I remember they found some burial mounds. Like, wow, we just found these the other day. One of our guides was out scouting and we've never seen this before. We're not sure what this is, but we've got some ideas. So you guys want to go look at it? And we're like, yeah, of course we do. And it was like, I felt like, and I think our entire group felt like we were the first ones to see it.
Yeah.
And I remembered throughout this journey, I was like, man, if you could replicate this exact experience for like every group for, every week, to where everybody leaves feeling like they were the first ones to see it. They were the first ones to do it. And to this day, I still don't know if this was all scripted out or just really well planned, but it was an amazing adventure. And it's one of the highlights that stand out. So I can kind of envision you guys doing kind of the same type of thing. It's very cool.
Yeah. I mean, the one for us really, we were heading towards Namso Lake in Tibet, and I really wanted to get there, and that's when we got stuck, and the road was really bad. So I thought I'll drive on the side of the road on the bog, and we got stuck. We went down, all the way down. The bumper was on the floor, and we couldn't. And we were at 4,000 meters, and we're digging in the mud, and we just could not get out. So in the end, we just got everybody to build camp. And I remembered earlier in the day that we had passed some Chinese road construction workers, with these big machines. So I got everyone to set camp up, and then I said, right, we'll just walk. I'll just walk, back. And my Chinese translator was like, Jim, you're mad. Yeah, you're mad. I said, well, we have to. Anyway, we picked up a motorbike and we got there, and they came in the morning. We got back to camp, and in the morning, these these Chinese guys came and with these big machines and pulled us out onto the road. And I'm like, right, let's continue. So we continue along the road, and we get to this river, and the bridge is down. And I'm like, I reckon we can get through this river. I really think we can get through it. And the group went, if you get us stuck in there, we're going to leave you here. We just don't do it. So at that point, I had to accept it that we weren't going to make it and turn around. But yeah, a lot of fun time. Yeah.
And I can imagine a lot of the guests, I mean, these are probably pretty adventurous guests that want to go do something like this, but I'm sure throughout your years of doing those types of trips, I'm sure you ran into a lot of people that were incredibly uncomfortable. They were really getting pushed outside their comfort zone. And I'm sure you've had some experiences and some stories of that. And I'm just curious, what kind of experiences do you have with that? Is there anything that comes to mind as far as somebody that shows up like, I don't want to be here, and then by the end of the trip, their life has changed?
Yeah, there's one person that does actually come to mind, and it might have been because it was probably my first ever trip that I'd done as a tour leader, which would have been in Africa. And that's not because it was in Africa or anything. I think it's memorable because it was my first one and the first time I'd seen it. And, this person, they'd arrived, they'd probably got a taxi to the hotel in Nairobi and petrified. I think they had a bit of a rough deal on the street in the day or something like that. But they were really, really nervous now, out of their depth. And then at the end, they grew. Because you used to try and build the team within the first week. But at the end of the 9 weeks, when we got to Cape Town, and I think I said it earlier, and you look back on it, and that's when it was like, it really resonated. You think, wow, this is powerful. This is a great thing. I'd grown as a person and developed, but also you could see these people that could just, they had an amazing adventure, but also for them, they'd grown as well, and they managed it very well. So it was hugely rewarding. And also, I guess we'd get it a lot on the hike. Now we're doing jumping ahead to doing treks on Kilimanjaro and things. You get that a lot, on the mountain treks where people think they haven't got the strength or the mental strength or physical strength to get on these, especially the hiking, trekking we do now. And they get there. And that's really fantastic as well.
I'm curious if there's maybe a couple words of advice that you have for somebody that's, maybe it comes up on the trail as you're going up the mountain, but like words of advice that you'd give somebody that's thinking about going to do a type of trip like that. What could you just say to them that is going to help them prepare, maybe mentally, physically, whatever they need to do before the trip? Or is there kind of common advice that you give?
I don't know really. I think what I do is I break things down into little bits rather than looking at the bigger picture. I kind of, especially when you're there, just take things as it comes. But I'm a firm believer, enjoy the whole journey and maybe relax and have confidence with the people that are around you, the people that, the guide or the people around you, and everyone can work together as a team. And
I love that you said kind of break it down into smaller parts, because that does a couple things. One, it helps kind of keep from being overwhelmed. Because if you're standing at the bottom of Kilimanjaro and as all you're thinking about is getting to the top, a couple things can happen. One is you can feel very overwhelmed, I believe. And also just that the presence that you mentioned, like being present in the moment. Today, or maybe even right now, after lunch, we're going to hike up to that ridge. And here's what we're going to do along the way. And it just kind of helps people stay in the present and breaks it down into manageable bites, right?
Yeah, I think so. And obviously with travel as well, and adventure travel, it's about the journey and it's about each day and every moment, isn't it? Rather than racing too far ahead.
So what's on a trek like Kilimanjaro? Is there a moment that it's all just comes together? Is it when you hit the summit, or is there some other moment that typically is when it all comes together, or when people are just like, holy cow, I can't believe I'm here?
I think I think that's a very individual thing. I think people along the journey have their own different moments and their own different challenges. For some people, it may be the top. For some people, it might be the first day, So you can have those moments, and you can have hopefully how you have many of those moments on any journey that you have to pinch yourself. I don't think there's any particular moment. I think it's down to the individual, really.
All right.
Yeah.
Very, very cool. And I want to go back now just a little bit, and I'll circle back around to this. Yeah. I'll try and circle back around to this, but let's go back to when you decided to leave the family business and go do all this. What was your family supportive of this? Was it just like, I got to go, see ya, peace out? Or what was that like?
You know, I can't remember. I do remember my friends thinking I was absolutely crazy. I think they were beginning to think about maybe buying properties and, this, that, and the other in their mid-20s. And I'm like, hey, I'm out of here. I'm off to go and work in Africa. And they were like, Africa? And they were like, wow, you must be getting loads of money. I'm like, £6 a day. I'll be getting paid £6 a day. So I think for them guys, I don't know what my family thought. There was concern, I suppose. Maybe they kind of always knew something like that. I would end up doing something. I don't know. I should ask, really.
And did you grow up with siblings?
I did, yes. I've got 2 elder sisters and a younger brother.
All right. Yeah. Did any of them kind of grasp onto the travel thing as well, or is it just you?
Just me. They're all home kids, yeah.
So you're to their kids, presuming if they have kids, you would be the crazy uncle.
I guess that would be right.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Or the adventurous one. Yeah.
The one that comes home maybe for holidays or whatever every once in a while and just shares stories like we just shared about going over the Tibetan plateau or through Africa.
I hope so. You just reminded me of something I remember growing up, and a friend of my mum's was an air hostess. And I always remember her coming home or coming to visit. And I was always in a little bit of awe, I think, as a young person. I was always thought that, wow, this person, they've been on a plane or they've been away somewhere. So I don't know, maybe it's always been there, that lust for travel.
Yeah. That's very, very cool. Now, I don't want to get too personal, but what about you? Did you have a family? Do you have any kids?
No, don't have any kids. We have myself and Sue work in the business, and she's spent all her life traveling around as well. Sue's Australian and now residing in Wales, so she's done lots of traveling. But we have a very spoilt dog. So,
well, but it sounds like you found somebody that could accept your wanderlust and was on board with it. It sounds like she's also into that.
Yeah, we're both very the same. We're both competing who's going on the next trip, really. Yes. Yeah.
Because that can be a challenge. I've been through that challenge myself. I've always had the wanderlust and need to go and need to see things. And it's not always that easy to find somebody that's quite on the same page, that has the same desire to go do those things. So that's
I think, when I was doing that overland thing, I think most people would probably do it for 2 or 3 years, because they would stop and then go back to their, not maybe their previous lives, but they would go back and start a family life. And I catch up with all these guys and they've all got their families and stuff. But yeah, I just like being on the road, really.
Yeah, no, I get it completely. So, but you're living in Wales right now, is that right?
That's right. Okay. Yes. Yeah.
And how much are you on the road, leading trips or scouting destinations and doing stuff?
Slow down an awful lot, which is great. Now I have a good balance now. Get to do some hobbies and things like that as well. So I would probably say over a 12-month period, we're probably 3 to 4 months of the year, I would say, out of the UK. And then the rest of the time here.
And maybe touching into your business a little bit, tell us a little bit about Adventurous Ewe and kind of what your you mentioned a couple of things. You mentioned Kilimanjaro, you mentioned trekking. So tell us a little bit more about kind of what your passion is within your business and what should people know about Adventurous Ewe.
Yeah. So we do a lot of UK and overseas stuff. The UK stuff runs usually from April to October. So we're very busy, and that can be lots of team building and corporate events with all over the UK. And they can be like hiking, kayaking and trekking, all various different activities and bespoke stuff. So that's what we do in the UK. And then we have our overseas program, which, dare I say, is our big passion, really. And on that, we do all sorts. Because we're a small company, we really try and make our itineraries and try and do things a little bit special or a little bit different. Obviously, being a small company, we can't compete with everyone else, but we also believe we like to add a different type of trip and have different itineraries as well. So we that's what we really try and focus on our overseas trips, and just ensuring that.
Are you doing a lot of group trips, or is this mostly maybe a family comes to you and says, I want to go here, and what we'd call an FIT, for individual travel or whatever? What kind of trips are you mostly doing?
We do both. Okay. We do, so we a lot of our sort of clients that have been with us for 10, 15 years, they might come up with an idea and then we'll try and do it. So we do small groups and large groups. We try and keep them between 6 and 12,
okay.
That's because we'd like to go, really.
Do you get many families traveling with, I'll say younger kids, but we can define what that means. But do you get many families traveling with kids?
No, not really. Most people, I would say, are in their early 30s up to a retirement age. We have got some family groups this year, actually, but they're older. They're sort of early 20s as the youngsters might be, because they're more demanding, I think, really. That particular booking, they're going to Costa Rica doing a hike, bike and rafting. So tend to be of an older age.
Right. Because I kind of wonder about, younger children, maybe even teenagers, and what that looks like with the current landscape of social media and telephones. Yeah. And I imagine, going on a trek somewhere. And I've had a similar conversation with some other tour operators that do treks. And it's like, how do, what would you say to parents with teenage kids that are thinking about doing this? And how do you keep how do you basically get the kids to kind of go along with it? And I mean, I remember doing, some what I would call treks with my dad when I was a teenager. And frankly, at the time, I kind of hated it. I'm not gonna lie. He was like a mountain goat, and I was like, "What are we doing? Can we?" But I didn't have a telephone or anything competing. It was just literally, like the father-son type of relationship dynamics. But now I look back at it and I think, wow, I'm so happy that I did that. I'm so happy that I spent that time with him. Yeah. And I hope other people do it, but I also recognize there's more challenges now. I mean, I've got a teenage son and I've traveled with him, and it's like we've been sitting in amazing places and he wants to sit in the Airbnb on his computer playing GeoGuessr, which is a game about international travel. I'm like, we could just go outside. Let's just go outside and take a walk. Yeah. It's a bit of a challenge. I was just wondering if you guys had much experience with that.
We do get some people that bring sort of their children out. Actually, we had a very interesting one today, or a great one today. So there's one lady who has been with us since probably more than 10 years, and originally she did Kilimanjaro with us and kept coming back. And her son came with us last year to Greenland on an expedition. And she said, can he come? She said, he's old enough now. I forgot the age, let's say 17 or something like this, or maybe a bit younger. He came to Greenland all with adults, absolutely had an amazing time. And today, I've had an email from him saying, Jim, when I graduate next year, I'm going to take some time out over next year, and I'm really keen to go to Japan. Could we book on one of your, I want to go on one of your, maybe your self-guided trips, and can you help me? And I'm like, so that's great. So now we've got the next generation coming along, and so that's really exciting. Yeah.
You remember just a few minutes ago, I said, I'm going to circle back around, or I'm going to try and circle back around. We just came full circle, because the question I'd already had in mind was that younger person, like you were working in the family business, doing something completely different. Yeah. You decided to go. Your friends thought you're crazy. All that, I'm sure there was some pressure to continue in the company, in the family business. So I wanted to ask you, what words of advice do you give for somebody maybe like this young man who's going to take some time off, go travel, or somebody that comes to you and says, Jim, I want to work for you. I want to lead trips for you. I want to do this, but my family, there's family pressure, I mean, what words of advice do you have for somebody like that?
That is a tough one, because times change, don't they? Things change. I think you just have to kind of follow it sounds a bit cheesy, I suppose, follow your passion. I'm really encouraging. We do every year try and, if people come to us saying they want to become mountain leaders, we do try and take 1 or 2 people on and try and encourage them and help them develop their skills to move on. So we do like to do that. But in terms of travel, I think you just got to get out there and put yourself out there a little bit and go for it. I do sometimes think whether people hold back a little bit too more. There's obviously adventurous people out there, but there's a lot more caution. Oh, I think there is, but I could be wrong about stepping out there and doing it. And it's got to be easier now than it was 30 odd years ago. It's got to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think back to you mentioning when you were on your first trip and, you had to step up and start kind of, I think you said Malawi. It was kind of like, okay, Jim's in charge of Malawi. And what a great opportunity that was for you to break through some barriers. And I agree with you. I think that traveling and taking off and exploring really kind of can help open up the world. Even if you decide after a few years to go back and have a family, you still take all that valuable stuff with you. I don't think it really has to be, and it's fun.
But it's really frightening taking that step. It's really frightening to take that step. And it whatever it is, if it's going on a train to a city nearby when you don't want one, that can be daunting, but go and do it and you'll find that it's not. But I think also in life, it's good to not to be wrapped up in a bubble and push yourself a little bit out of your comfort zone. And you'll be surprised how far you can go on where it can lead you in some amazing places with and meet some just the most incredible people.
You mentioned when we were talking about like climbing the mountain, how do you kind of coach your clients through that? It's like focus on, the smaller bits, break it down into bits. Yeah. And I've been traveling full time for the last, 2.5 years. And if I go back in hindsight and I realize one of the biggest challenges I had, and probably not the way I should have done it, was I was like, I just made the decision I'm going. I sold all my stuff, sold my car, bought a one-way ticket, and just started going. And what I realized is, in a sense, it kept me going because I didn't have a lot of options to fall back on. Yeah. When I say I sold my stuff, I didn't have enough stuff to like put a lot of money in the bank. It was just, I just got rid of my stuff. Yeah. And I think that a lot of people are reluctant to go start a journey because they think they have to commit to it for years. It's like, okay, if I'm going to go be a digital nomad, I need to go do it for years. And I think that can, number one, be very overwhelming. But also what happens is once you've told all your friends, maybe you, for example, I'm going to Africa and I'm going to be, an overland guide in Africa for the next, if you say for the next 5 years, and you start telling yourself for the next 5 years, then when you get there, if you do change your mind, decide to go a different direction, it can be difficult to change because you've created this identity. You've told all these people that you're going to do it for so long. And I say, I just encourage people, just go on a trip. Just go somewhere. It doesn't, go for a month. If you can take off a month, if you can take off a year as a gap year, go do it. You don't have to commit to doing this forever, but go out and do it. If it's enjoyable, if it works for you, you can pretty much just continue it. And if not, it's okay to go home if that's what your preference is.
Yeah, I don't think I ever had a long-term plan. I don't think I ever had a plan that anything was going to be more than a couple of weeks or months ever. Yeah. It never was. And what am I, 26 years now leading groups? At one point it's like, I'll just do another year. A little bit more. When I felt ready, and a little bit more. And then before, the whole life.
And that mindset isn't necessarily, supported by a lot of families and a lot of just our society and our culture. Because I think we're told, by the time we're in high school, okay, well, what are you going to do in college? What are you going to study? Yes. What kind of work are you going to do? Where are you going to live? Where are you going to buy your house? And you better have a plan. Yes. You better have that consistency. And that works for some people.
Of course.
But that can I've had so many folks here on the show that we're going that direction. This is kind of what my family wanted me to do. And this is what I thought I should do. And then at the age of 40 or 45 or 50, I decided I'm miserable. This is not what I want to be doing. So I agree with you. I think it's, for me anyway, for my personality, obviously for your personality, it's like, okay, I'm just going to take a step. And I'll just keep doing it because I enjoy it. I'm getting a lot out of it. And then there can be a lot of value in that. So
Absolutely.
Not sure where I was going with all that, but
no, but I mean, I think you just got to make decisions for yourself on what, it's not for everyone. Although I sit here now talking, I'm really excited to sat right here talking about this and bringing all these memories back. And it is my life. And absolutely, I would never be the person I would be today. And I'm so glad where I'm sat and where I am today, thanks to travel and all the people that I've met and where you were saying about, I've been on buses thinking, what the hell am I doing on this thing in the middle of the night in the dark thinking, and I've taken that, but it's turned out all right and it's been great. And yeah, it's very powerful. Yeah.
So we've talked about some of the fun things, the exciting things, and some of, you and I have some similar passions. I can see it on your face for those that are listening to this, just the audio portion, they don't get to see your face all lit up. But I also think it's worth sometimes sharing some of the downsides that people don't think of, maybe that's thinking about making a big commitment, going to Africa, doing that. There are some challenges that come up as well. So I'm curious for you, what have been the surprises or the downsides that you kind of feel like you'd like to share with somebody that hasn't been through what you've been through?
Yeah, I guess there are sacrifices. You miss a lot of things at home. There was, I hear a lot of my siblings and things, and they had a lot of summers where they were on my dad's boat and things like that. I was never there. Family times when, you feel like you should be there and you couldn't. So that's quite how Christmas isn't. So that there are those things that you miss. But the good overrules stuff, always makes things, But I think
I'm imagining you sitting in a camp on the way up Kilimanjaro, and a group of clients are sitting around with you, like, oh, you've got the most amazing job. You're so lucky to be able to do this, and they only see the you sitting there having having a small glass of wine or something with them on the side of the mountain. I don't even know if you do that, but I know that, my career in tourism is quite often has been, my clients are like, wow, Jason, you've got the best job ever. But there's so much they don't see behind the scenes that they don't know how many hours you spent maybe modern day sitting in front of a computer working on itineraries or financing or trying to deal with local guides that don't always respond in a timely manner and stuff like that. So what are some of the challenges? If you had to look at them and say, yeah, it's great, but you don't realize this, what would that part be? That you'd share with them?
For me, but now running your own, travel business, that everyone does say, oh, you've got an amazing job, but there are hours. I don't think you can count the hours of how much you work and things like that. I hate accounts. That's the challenge.
Say that again.
I hate accounts.
Oh,
I hate accounts and things. That's probably my biggest thing. But it is challenging running your own business, definitely. But again, the rewards beat the hard work.
Yeah, absolutely. So what's your favorite point from, let's say you start building an itinerary, you've got an idea in your head for some sort of trip or trek that maybe you want to lead it as a group leader. So from the moment you kind of sit down and start, okay, here's what we're going to do day 1, day 2, you start planning it out until the moment that you read the reviews after the trip. Yeah. So the trip has already happened. You've read the reviews. So what point during that process do you feel the biggest high or the biggest excitement level and the biggest sense of whatever that is for you?
Yeah. There is a great high when you sort of come up with an idea and you build this idea together as a trip. We've got one in Sweden, which we built ourselves, and it's gone really well over the last 9 years. We were the only ones doing it and stuff. And that was hugely rewarding to come up with the idea, build it, and see it grow and see people come on it. And they still say to us, it's, such a great trip it is. That's great fun. But I think it's just seeing everybody at the end and seeing them have a great time. And you're like, we've built this, fantastic trip. I really enjoy doing that.
I don't know why it was with me. It's kind of weird, and I've always been trying to figure it out. But my high is usually right after I say goodbye to the clients in the airport.
Yeah.
And I don't know why, because that sounds like I'm like, oh, finally, I don't have to deal with these people anymore. But it was never that. It was more of a, the hugs and and like, oh man, can't wait to go do this again. And they would all go to their gates and I would be like, okay, it's done, but not, and it's a done, like, thank God it's done because I don't like these people. It was more of a, we did it.
I
they
get
had
excited.
fun. I'm sending them home with good memories.
Yeah.
So I was curious if you have a similar type of thing.
I get excited meeting people before the briefing, and then when I'm briefing them, that's when I get excited. I feel
on the front end.
Yeah, the front end, and then when they're leaving, actually, I feel quite sad, and sometimes you feel a bit lonely because you've built. They become friends. You know, they become friends. People, dear friends, and we stay in touch and things like that. They really, really do. The beginning, a little bit apprehensive. Even now, sometimes the night before, I still don't sleep after all these years of doing it, thinking, "Oh, how's it going to go? How's it going to go?" And then meet everyone, and then I get really excited then. Yeah.
All right. Yeah. No, that's cool. I can relate to that. Like the night before. It's like, okay, because you want everything to go so well. And you know that you can only, you can do a lot of planning. You can do a lot of things to avoid surprises, but there's always what's the dynamic of the group going to be? You know?
Exactly.
So there's that worry. So,
but that's exciting, I think, because that's the interest, because it changes all the time. You know, you can do the same tour. I think we touched on it earlier, doing the same tour time and time again, but you've always got a different dynamic. It's never the same. Everything always changes, and always different problems or different things, different personalities and things. And that's what makes it exciting as well, you know, being a tour leader.
I noticed that we spoke about your first briefing that you gave in Africa.
Yeah.
And then you just now basically said the time that I'm the most exciting is when I'm giving the first briefing.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like, isn't that interesting that the thing that you were probably the most nervous about and that had that you remembered as the most uncomfortable thing for you in the beginning has now become the thing that you, based on what you just said, you seem to enjoy the most. That's interesting.
I've never thought about that before, but I guess that's what I've kind of been saying as well, is that for me, it was the development, which is why I stuck in it, you know, from 1 year onwards. I was always learning and growing as a person and things, you know. Something else comes to mind, which might be a little bit different, but where I remember traveling was what travel can do for you as well. And I was like, oh, shall I start up a business? What, you know? And then I don't know where we were. We were in India, something like this. And I was looking around on the street and you see people, and there might have been a lady with little triangles of tomatoes, let's say, that they're trying to sell at the end, you know, for the day to feed the family or something. And you're like, I'm really worried about, why am I worried about? Because all these people here they're all business people. You know, that lady's got to sell her tomatoes to feed her family at the end of the day. And that's that. And she's got to find the right place, the right street and everything to do it. And maybe why am I so frightened about doing it when so many people out there live their lives doing it? And that, I think, had come from traveling and seeing what's going on around the world, which is very important, like, you know, to see what's going on around. And you see that and you go, right, I can do something. I'll have a go at something. Yeah.
If she can do it, maybe I can do it. You're just not selling tomatoes. You're selling experiences to go visit people that are selling tomatoes or whatever, right?
I guess.
That's cool.
No, it was just a moment of just thinking, you know, have a go. Yeah.
And when did you actually start the business? Okay.
But if I'm honest, I had no idea what I was doing. So I think it took another clue. You know, for instance, I would put posters up at the bottom of a mountain offering guiding services when I guess there's people who are already walking up the mountain. You know, so I wasn't really going to get many calls.
That's where you want to sell. That's where you want to sell evacuations, maybe. Or hey, if you change your mind, call us. We'll come get you, bring you back down the mountain while the rest of your group goes up. But I get it. I can relate to that. Yeah.
Yeah. So you know, I say about 2011 where it began to support me. You know, I did a bit of work in between. I worked in a little bit of work in mental health as well while I was starting up the business. And then, 2011, it was kind of myself on my own. It was supporting me then. It took a while.
So I want to ask you a question that maybe came up recently because of, you know, things that were happening around the world. If all of the sudden you could not do travel, if somebody just came to you and said, Jim, it's still out there, other people are doing it, but you cannot do it for whatever reason, just hypothetically speaking, what would you want to go do?
I don't know. I had that moment during COVID. I really did.
Yeah,
I
suspect.
Hands in your head thinking, what am I going to do? But then again, I think through travel, you think about all these people that live through various different lives. And then you think, actually, it's not so bad. There are other people having really terrible times around the world. And I think for having traveled, that lets you reflect on still what you have got and and that things can be all right. But I didn't know what I was going to do. I can't think of not working in the travel industry. I think if Adventurous Ewe I end, I think I often thought about I'd get on a push bike and just cycle around the world.
Yeah. Okay.
I think that's something I would do. And then go, I was going to say work in like lodges and things like that. But obviously if we're talking out of tourism, I think I would just have to get on a push bike and just cycle. And
part of why I asked that is because you'd mentioned that for a period of time as you were getting the business going, you were working in the mental health field.
Yeah.
And I think that there's a lot of connection psychology between travel, adventures, experiences, mental health, and all that. And I recognize that COVID was probably as much a mental health crisis as it was a physical health crisis, economical crisis, so many things that impacted mental health. So I was kind of wasn't sure where to go with that, but
it was a difficult time. It was for everybody. So yeah.
Fortunately, the world is traveling again.
That's it. Yeah. We're back
and has been for a while. There's actually quite a rebound there. Did you, when we came out of that, I don't know, what was your, as we started to come out of it, as people were starting to travel again, were there any surprises that came up for you?
I think as a business, we were quite lucky because we're quite diverse. So we have our stuff in the UK, and then we have our overseas. So when everything started to come out of COVID and in the UK, everybody had to stay within the UK, our summer boomed because we had stuff within the UK. Those tour operators that sold just overseas didn't have it. We had that. We also, so that was a good thing. And then obviously slowly but surely people have started to travel more, and we're working on some great new itineraries and get out there to some new places. Yeah,
because there were a lot of people that pent up demand. They I need to get out of the house, and if you've got clients in the UK and tours in the UK, then that made it possible. I'm curious, what's on the horizon for you? Any big new programs, additions, anything that you want to announce here on the show, or is it business as usual? What's going on?
No, we're always trying to think of new ideas, really, and we've got trying to get some stuff. We're looking up in towards K2 base camp. We've got treks going up there. We're also looking at in August, we're going to look at a new hut-to-hut trek through Norway and Sweden, which is quite exciting. And I'm actually taking a group cycling in Rwanda in February. So I'm really excited about it. Very hilly. So I hope we're going to build that into a new program as well. Don't stop thinking of ideas for sure.
Yeah, I can tell. Just what you said, cycling in Rwanda sounds pretty cool.
Yeah.
So very, very cool. So, and the link to your website is going to be in the show notes. So anybody listening to this, if he's caught your attention, which he's got mine for sure, they'll be able to click through and look at and hopefully see some of those new trips on your website soon, or reach out to you to maybe help do something custom. Jim, we covered quite a few things. I appreciate that. There's a lot more we did not cover. There's a lot of things under there, but I'm curious, what did I forget to ask you? What should I have asked you that you want to make sure that our listeners hear before we wrap it up?
I think I'm happy with everything we've covered. It's been really nice meeting you. I've really, really enjoyed our chat. It's been absolutely fantastic. And I've got no questions, and thank you very much. It's been absolutely great.
Well, thanks for coming on. And I got to tell you, when I first saw your business name, Adventurous Ewe, I thought of a mountain sheep or a mountain goat of some sort climbing up the mountain, because I grew up in the Rocky Mountains of Wyoming.
Okay. Yeah.
So to me, it's like, oh, that's such a clear connection. Adventurous Ewe. It's it's a mountain goat, a sheep, it's trucking and all that stuff. I think it's a great name, not just a sheep in Wales. But I've seen your website. I know that you've implemented some of those ideas that I just mentioned.
Yeah, it just came from, it made me laugh. It was as simple as that. There's a lot of serious sort of adventure names out there, and I think travel should be fun. And that's it. And it made me laugh. So I thought, well, that's great.
Made me laugh, got my attention, and that's why you're here on the show with me. So thank you for taking time out of your day to come share some of your stories, adventures, and just your perspectives on life and travel. And look forward to collaborating on some stuff with you in the future. Look forward to meeting you in person.
Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you very much for your time.
Thanks, Jim. Have a great day.
You too. Bye. Bye.
Bye.
I trust you enjoyed listening to the conversation as much as I enjoyed recording it. If you're enjoying the Big World Made Small podcast, please take a moment to tell the algorithm by subscribing and posting a review so that others can benefit as well. I also invite you to take a quick trip over to bigworldmadesmall.com and join our private adventure travel community to receive new episode notifications, special access to our guest experts, and perhaps even some exclusive partner offers that we haven't discussed on the podcast. I'll publish another episode soon. Until then, keep exploring. It's the best way to make a big world feel just a bit smaller.